Hello, everybody.
Where's the music? You was responsible for the music.
I was not.
You were too.
I just wasn't. So.
You were too. You were too.
I wasn't. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for day 2. It takes a village, and that is the reality of of life. It takes a village to raise children. I have not done so yet, so I can't lie and act like that's true, but I've been a part of a lot of people's villages, and I'm grateful and thankful for that. Everybody who was here yesterday knows that that's my tagline. I'm going to say it all week, all the time, because it expresses how I feel. So this mirroring
thing. You gotta get together. It's just, you gotta get together. So the software has this mirror. If I point that way, yes. Anyway, we had an incredible night last night. I could not be happier with the way that the Black on Black Education Conference kicked off. We had some amazing students come, drop bombs over and over and over again through poetry, through presentations, through all of the various different ways that they should be able to express themselves in school, but today they're not necessarily allowed to do. I so look forward to working with these kids again, because we're going to show, in conjunction with them, what they can do. They are little magical human beings, and it's the village that is responsible for raising them up and raising them up properly. So that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be creating a future of education together, and we're going to be doing so as a village. And I'm extremely heartened to be bringing some of the people that I'm about to bring up, because I've met them in different times of my life, but the love is real for all of them. So up first I'm going to bring Mr. Andre Early. This gentleman, he I'm sorry, I should have warned you. I just I'm supposed to have somebody else doing the run the show, but it's on me. So Andre is well, actually you changed your position. You're gonna have to give your new position, but he for a long time was in the Theodore Young Community Center.
Not a long time.
He's like, don't age me. Don't do that.
I've known him for years, and I love him dearly, and I'm happy he came to join us tonight. Taj, we're bringing her up. She was our partner from last night, from Teens Take Charge. That event could not have come off, without you, Taj. Like y'all did your whole entire thing, and we truly appreciate it. So we're looking forward to getting this conversation together. Jason is somebody who I just met recently on Clubhouse. I found him in the club. Like this is a new spot where we love to come and hang out. And Jason comes into all kind of rooms, and he drops bars over and over and over again. He knows what the village is all about, and so we had to have him come and share with us, his perspective on how we connect the village, how we connect the family into the classroom and beyond. So I'm going to let you guys do some quick introductions of yourself, and why did you think it was so important to join this conversation tonight?
Dad, do I have to do it? I have to do it again, Dad?
Do it again.
You what?
I don't know what you're saying.
We're using gender neutral language in here. What's up?
You people. What do I say? What's the
you all?
Yes, you everybody. I'm going to learn. I promise. I'm going to learn. Taj, you're going to help me. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, y'all. Taj here. I'm the program manager at Teens Take Charge, which is a youth-led advocacy organization fighting for educational equity in New York City. I'm also the communications manager and event director at Students Break the Silence, which is a intergenerational coalition of educators, students, and families fighting for police-free schools through the lens of Black liberation and Black joy. And I'm excited to be here today because I just happened to get an email from Jamal and Eva, and I'm so grateful that I did, because yesterday just sharing space with them and the students was really beautiful. And like Jamal said, it really does take all of us. And what the babies may not necessarily get at school or at home, they can get from the community. And so I love that is an option, and it's something I really deeply believe in.
And I just want to quickly say that Taj can teach everybody about what it is like to, whether it's Zoom or whatever kind of meeting you're on with kids, whatever's supposed to be going on in the chat, she was a rock star. She had these kids like loving being on an electronic tool because she supported and celebrated them so much in the chat. That was magical, Taj, and we truly, truly, truly appreciate it. Up next, we will go, I guess, age before beauty. So we'll go with with Jason, who I just met recently, bro. Tell me why you thought it was important to join us and introduce yourself, please.
Hey, what's happening, y'all? Thank you for having me. Jason Acosta. I'm a social worker and an educator. I wear a lot of different hats, but I do a lot of work around systems and understanding how systemic trauma impacts Black and Brown folks. So I work for the Department of Education. I also have my own consulting firm where I'm doing a lot of work around identity and healing, and most recently developing curriculum around identity empowerment for Black and Brown men. I'm really trying to get to the root of who we are, and reshifting and reclaiming our own narratives. So I do a lot of work around that. I have a podcast called Live from the Bronx, where we are looking to shift the narrative of the Bronx by highlighting Bronx creatives and change makers. And I'm also an adjunct professor, so I teach some high school students at the collegiate level, though, so they're taking college credit with me. And the course is called Intro to Urban Education, and we focus a lot on how systems and inequities impact urban education. So social worker at heart, educator, but kind of like a jack of all trades, as you can see. Happy to be here.
And Jason has just been so supportive, like from the first day we met, and like quickly replied to IG. What you need? I'm there. Oh, Clubhouse, I'm there. Like, just super supportive, man. So that's what community is about, and we appreciate you. So, Mr. Early,
hey,
how are you?
Blessed and highly favored. How are we doing?
Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I just asked this brother to join this morning, and he decided that I'm sorry, better late than never. Better late than never. And he said, but of course, we appreciate you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, as well as why you thought this was an important combo.
Good evening, all. Andre Early, currently serving as the Deputy Commissioner for Westchester County's Parks and Recreation Department. Recently just left out of the Commissioner role with the town of Greenburgh, the Department of Community Resources, which is responsible for the historic Theodore D. Young Community Center. So that's my professional role. And I myself, just like Jason, wear many, many, many hats in regards to the work that I do within the community, whether it's through my church, through my fraternity, and just through all the community-based organizations that I'm a part of.
Got it.
I'm short and to the point.
Well, I said a lot. Eva, first question on you.
So, I mean, let's just kick it off with asking, well, what does it mean to be a part of the village of raising a child to you? So I'll kick it right back to where we ended off. Wrong way. There we go. To Mr. Early.
That proverb, like that really means a lot. It's one of those things that really drives my passion for helping others. What I've pretty much decided that I always wanted to be the person that I needed when I was growing up. And what I mean by that is, granted, I had some very positive role models in my life, but we have to put everything into its proper context. Simply because I believe I must be the oldest one here. So when you're raised in the 70s and 80s, fathers, mothers, they were on that grind all the time, making sure that there was food on the table, clothes on the back, roof over the heads. But then, there's still, as a child, as a teenager, you still need some type of guidance in order for you to really succeed. We're at that age where we don't want to listen to our parents, even though that they are right. But it is what it is. It's one of those learning type of endeavors. And I committed myself to helping those that pretty much came after me. So I have a whole bunch of little brothers, little sisters that I've been able to mentor, to chastise, but to help grow and understand and allow them to understand the bigger picture in regards to this journey called life.
Awesome. Jason, you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah, so this is loaded for me, right? When I think about community, I'm just gonna share another proverb, right, which is super connected to this, and it's the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth, right? And so this is what I think about, and I think it's super important when we are talking about just connecting young people to a community, and the community uplifting that child and that individual, right, or that person. It might not even have to be a child, but just that person. And when I do the work that I do, I'm as a social worker, right? I start off with my intro talking about systems, and this is something that I truly think about, because a lot of times I think in education we tend to just look at like just the teacher-student relationship, maybe admin-teacher relationship, maybe admin-teacher-student relationship, but we never really talk about, well, what are the strengths of the community in which these young people live in, where the school's located, where are the community organizations that exist, where's the church, right? Where are these other institutions that play a significant role in a young person's life, and how do we all come together as a school system, as the church, as a community-based organization, and just as a community to really build and uplift each other. And then once you get to a point, and this is something that I try to do within my own work, kind of related to what you were saying, Andre, right? It's like once you get to a point where you feel empowered, you feel uplifted, you feel like you are finding success in whatever it is that you want to do, let's come back to the community and figure out how we can continue to build on that, right? And strengthen those communities to uplift together, right? To move together in a positive direction.
Yes.
You said something. I apologize, but Jason, you said something right there, because honestly, that is our obligation. That is our obligation, and I'm so glad that you realize that.
Absolutely, and what you're talking about there is the ecosystem, and it's an ecosystem that we're building tonight. You know what I'm saying? It's an ecosystem that I know each of you guys build on a day-to-day basis, and I think it's in the best shape it's ever been. Taj, what would you like to add?
Hey y'all. I would love to talk about like what the village is not to me, because I think a really, really big piece of building the village is like having an intergenerational understanding, right? Of like really understanding that the young people are people. They are full human beings with thoughts and opinions and minds and talents, and kind of moving away from the tendency to put our young people in a position where they are, where they feel like they should be seen and not heard, right? Because once you hear them, you can move with and for them. And if you're in a position as an adult where you are not listening, then you really can't form a village with these young people. So a big part of it for me is just like, what does it look like to create a space where young people feel validated and safe so that they can share authentically, so that I can build whatever it is that they need me to build for them to have the best lives possible, right? The best health, the best access to joy, the best, even if it's resources, right? A child has to be comfortable with you in order to share with you, in order for you to support them in the ways that they need support, because it's going to look different for every young person. We can have a really, really clear understanding of what our communities need, and still take that extra time to be really explicit and be really specific with the children in our lives, because even as individuals, their needs vary. And in addition to Teens Take Charge and Students Break the Silence, I'm also on the Black Lives Matter at School Steering Committee, and on the Steering Committee of Parents for Responsive, Equitable, Safe Schools, which was born out of the pandemic in response to what we felt like was a failure on the DOE's part to support our Black and brown babies and give them the resources that really they should have had before COVID, because then we wouldn't be in the situation, our communities wouldn't be in the devastation that they're in now, if you had always taken the time to give us language access, if you had always taken the time to make sure that every child has a device and not just the families who can afford it, right? So just thinking about the connection points and all of those things, and figuring out, the village should be the safe place, really. The village is the safe place. The village is the calm in the storm of this white supremacist world.
So good. So good.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting that the process of what this should look and feel like, and I definitely want to start to go deeper. So talk to me about like the practically, how an organization like Teens Take Charge should enact with the school, should enact with the community center, should enact with the church. Let's talk about exactly what that ecosystem might look like in a phenomenal community, one where kids are as amazing as Taj's last night, and where they are, where we are teaching them what they want to learn. Let's who went first last time? Eva, you're better than me at this. Andre.
Sure, I'll go first again. Anyway.
The fact that you have known my father so long, this is gonna be good. I'm excited to continue to watch it.
We're not talking about me tonight, by the way.
So let's look at it like this. When we look at youth and activism, they go hand in hand. If you look at the majority of the quote unquote revolutions that have taken place on this soil, it's driven by the youth. When you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, it's driven by the youth. Now, what is my responsibility is to make sure that the youth are supported, that they trust me, I trust them, so we can move forward. So when they do come to a community center or community-based organization, it is our job to, not shun them away, not to say, oh, it's not your time. It is our time to embrace them and assist them with their goals. That's how I've always will look at this as a mentoring opportunity. So because you have to understand this. I've been around the earth quite a few times, so I already have some type of wisdom and experience under my belt. Now, what's going to happen is that same energy, that same wisdom is being shared with this younger generation, so they will be able to further move the needle as to what we're trying to accomplish as a people. So, when you already heard, each generation is supposed to be that much better, if not more, than the previous one. Right? So if that is the case, our job is to pretty much drop these pearls of wisdom. I still allow individuals, I still allow youth to make mistakes because that's part of growth. But it is our job to make sure that they do move forward, and we have to bring them along with us, kicking and screaming.
I'm happy to jump in on that really quickly next, just because as Andre, as you're talking and I was sitting here processing and thinking about practically what this looks like. I don't know if y'all have seen Judas and the Black Messiah yet, but that is it, right? What the Black Panther Party did, what the Young Lords did, that is community, right? That is practically how you come together as a community, and they're showing you this, right? Like there's films, there's original documentary films and footage, and there's also this movie that was just put out. So plug in to go watch that. It's a part of history and speaks directly to how you build community from within, right? The other thing that comes to mind for me as I'm thinking about just their work, but just what it means to be in a community and with the people, is really thinking about, like, if I'm somebody who, and we see this happen a lot, right? Like a lot of nonprofit organizations have after school programs. They say, hey, we want to serve X population, right? That could be a low income community. That could be a particular group of students in New York City that tends to be Black and brown folks a lot, or students of color, right? And we work with them. But we often don't think about, like, who is in the community and who are the stakeholders before we start the program, right? So if I want to start a program in the South, I'm from the Bronx, grew up in the South Bronx, still live in the South Bronx, right? So if I want to start a program, a college access program for high school young people, high school students who are interested in figuring out their post-secondary pathways, whether that be like a trade or college or whatever it is you want to do. If I want to start a program in the South Bronx, before I start the program, right, before I even go to apply to get the 501c3, I need to kind of look around and see, well, what's happening, what already exists, right? So what nonprofits or organizations are serving this community? Who are the activists on the ground? Who is killing this, like doing amazing work and really being the spokespeople for the community? We need to look at, we mentioned churches, right? Like, who are the people that already have a handle on the community and are already empowering the community to do this work. Then it's my job to meet them, understand the work, understand where they come from, right? We talk about cultural competence, understand the community beyond them just speaking to us, right? Like we got to do our homework. We got to understand the communities we're about to serve, right? We got to, even if we want to teach the communities we're going to teach in, whatever your role is, if you're working with young people or with a community you're not familiar with, you have to do your homework, right? Like cultural competence is so important. And then as you're learning about what's happening, find out whether or not they want you in the community. Do you feel like there's a need for me to be here within this community providing this service? They may not need that. That may not be the priority for them at the moment, right? Like, so I think it's important to think about all these different aspects of community before we move it, before outsiders, right, come into the space to say we want to provide this service or we want to have this program, etc. So it's really taking a holistic approach. And Taj said this really nicely, right? Making sure the people that need to be at the table are at the table and building with you as you want to do whatever it is you're planning to do in the community.
Oh, I love it. I love
Jason,
it.
you
I
better
love it.
preach on tonight.
Oh,
I'm so glad you work at the DOE. What department are you
Said
in?
it all.
Be my friend, Jason.
Well, we can connect. We can definitely connect. I work in Central. I do a lot of diversity work.
Come on, Central.
Let's talk.
No, because I've too many folks at the DOE just they really don't get that, and you literally have to explain to them, yo, you came to the community and you were so upset at their response to you, but you didn't even ask these folks what was going on, how they was doing, what is the landscape like, what do y'all need and what do y'all want, right? Because people have all these assumptions about what Black folks need, what Black youth need, what Black communities need. We can just tell you if you ask us. Because maybe the big ass building you want to put in my community is not what I need. Maybe I just need some MetroCard money. Maybe I just want to be able to buy kale that's not $48 a pound. Maybe I just need some accessible childcare, right? But if you're not asking and you're not in community, right? And that comes in like the savior piece, right? And what I love about our folks is that when it's us working with us, 9 times out of 10, we're not coming from that place, right? We do have, like respectability things that we need to work out as a community, but when it's outsiders, a lot of times there's this savior mentality, right? And so it's, you need this thing and I have this thing for you. Here, be grateful, as opposed to like, let's work together and build something beautiful. Like your goal, if you are an outsider in our community, should be to come leave your gift and get out the way, right? Like we got it. If what you're truly trying to do is like impart something and create a better tomorrow for a community, it should never be your intention to stay there forever and take up space. And so what we are able to do and what the village looks like really is meeting those essential needs first, right? Like I can't have my kids on the front lines and fighting for justice and they didn't eat breakfast and they don't have school supplies and they, mom and dad is having some issues and they don't have no mental health support. They don't have no socio-emotional support, right? So like getting really to the basics of treating Black folks like people, right? And our children like full human beings. That relationship building really does the work for us. And it also allows us a really clear picture on, okay, what exactly is needed for us to thrive. And then we fill those gaps. We stand in the gaps. And that's something our communities have always done. We've never been able to rely on anyone else. We've always, like mutual aid, honey, y'all late. We've been doing that. We've been feeding each other. We've been clothing each other's babies and making big meals so that the neighbor doesn't have to eat. You know what I mean? So the village is ingrained in us. And I think it's really just about getting back to that, right? That tribe mentality. Nuclear families are beautiful and wonderful and magical, but you shouldn't only have to rely on the folks in your house, right? And sometimes you can't. The reality is sometimes you can't. Every family, it has its own stuff, its history. We got a lot of generational trauma in our community. So what does it look like to really see the whole block as your family? And then move in that spirit.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But before just one comment, Mr. Thomas, what you just heard from Jason and Taj, my man, is the blueprint. Okay, it's the blueprint. You take that into the communities and you approach school districts. Did you hear what I just said? You approach school districts and community-based organizations, because what we talked about earlier is exactly what they just broke down right now.
Yep.
we must be here, like growing up in the same area, because I was literally thinking, blueprint as well. And this is what we are going to do. Like, we've never had I don't know that we've ever had the chance, quite like we do now. So we are going to ask you guys, one more question, to kind of take it home. We really want to understand, like, you guys kind of gave the one thing. I was going to give you like that last question, give the one thing, but you guys gave all of the things. But what do you want to leave people with more than anything else, from your perspective, on this village ecosystem that we're talking about? Taj, why don't you take us out?
Sure. Really trust the babies, man. Like, they gonna get on your nerves. They gonna listen to music you don't like. They gonna wear stuff, and you're gonna be like, babe, what is you doing? You going outside like that? But like, just be sure, right? Like that in your love and your mentorship and in your stewardship, that you are also leaving space for them to just exist, right? And to feel safe enough with you to trust you with things, because again, it all goes back to that relationship building. And the maintenance of the village really rests on us, the adults, right? Like, what kind of spaces are we creating for our students? What kind of support are we providing for the young people on the front lines? Are we familiar, right? Do we know what young people are doing this work? Do we know the names of the organizations? Do we know the organizers? Is there a way that we at our job or at our church or at our work, at our, our job, can support them, donate to the cause, show up to an action, right? And then also, each and every one of us has a role to play. So maybe you're not a quote unquote activist, but you're an adult. Pull up with some food to the action, right? Like, it could be something as simple as like following these youth organizers on Instagram, just so that you can stay abreast, right? To where how they're thinking and is and what their needs are, during the pandemic, how things have shifted. Really just being open. And loving on the babies out loud too. Like, that's why I'm in the chat like that, because they really they need and they deserve the affirmation. And we know that Black children don't tend to get that, right? They're not getting that at school. They're being told, don't wear your hair like that, don't wear your pants like that, don't talk like that. You know what I mean? So just loving the babies very, very loudly and unapologetically, and making space for them to be themselves. And I think everything else just kind of falls into place. And we create those beautiful intergenerational bonds that move the work forward, as Andre was saying.
Beautiful, sis. Beautiful. Andre, I know you got a 7:30. I don't want to make you late for that. You want to take us out with some bars?
Early is never late. Always on time, baby.
How many times have you said that, man?
Because my last name's been early. Honestly, Todd just took it all. I will say this, from a personal experience. I woke up one morning and I realized I was my father. It was one of those situations. What kind of music are you guys listening to? Like, really? This is not music. And no, change your outfit. But let me tell you, one of the things that I do realize is that we all have to come into our own, and we all have to come into our own at our own time. And what do we do? What is our responsibility? Is to support, embrace our youth the way that we would want to be embraced. Because at the end of the day, we're all here to make an impact. I'm at that point now in life where there are more yesterdays and tomorrows. But I know as long as I continue to walk this earth, I know for a fact that I am destined to make an impact while I'm here. And that's what it's really all about.
You already have, big bro. You already have. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? You've been a staple in the community for a long time. And yeah, much love. Much love. Jason, you've been a staple in my community just for a little while, but much love too. Let's how you want to take us out tonight?
Yeah, so I just want to add, I want to echo everything that was just said and emphasize it, but I also want to add one other piece really quickly that I think is important for us to always remember. So every semester when I teach my young people, and they come from high schools from all over New York City, and they come together with me, the first assignment I have them do is an educational autobiography. And what they do is they by the time they write this autobiography, they have touched on some things around identity markers, positionality, etc. Really introductory. and they write this paper and they reflect on their K through 12 experience. And it never fails. It don't matter where you go to school, the most high performing academic school or what they consider to be the lowest performing academic school. It does not matter. The one thing that remains true across all these papers every semester is the fact that I constantly had to remind my students that they are beautiful and that they matter. And although I know that there's a lot going on and there's a lot of like inequity, et cetera, to read 25 different papers and have to continuously repeat the same thing for each individual student reminds me that we have so much work to do, right? And so I just want to leave us with that, right? Just know that you're beautiful, right? Know that you are powerful beyond measures. Know that as a community, we're even that much more stronger. And always remember that despite what's going on in your life, despite the influences, despite the white supremacy or whatever academic terms you want to use, despite all that's going on, know that you matter, know that you're beautiful, and know that you're powerful.
Thank you, man. You guys actually, Eva,
you all. I'm gonna get you every time. I'm gonna get you.
It's fine.
It's a learning moment for everybody.
It's a lot of years. Like it's a whole lot of years. You know what I'm saying?
Like you gotta unlearn, right? And so the last thing I want to say before y'all hop off and we kind of transition into the next panel conversation is I'm taking all of this in as someone who is a first-year teacher. I'm taking all this in as someone who I am an explant in my community. I live in the South Bronx now. I am not from the South Bronx. I don't have the experiences that my students have. I might share the skin color of them. My hair might look the same, but I don't have the same experience that they do. I don't have the same traumas that they do. We all come into the space of my classroom differently. And when I hear everything that everyone's saying, it just continues to remind me that I cannot forget that the content, not today, not tomorrow, and not the day after that, is going to be as important than what we just talked about in this conversation. Never will. It's never going to be more important. And that's what it's about with having educators matched with community members, matched with parents, matched with families around how we support and uplift and raise people. Because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my village. Everybody else wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their village. And if we think, okay, my village wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be for me, just like all of you echoed tonight, we have to make sure that we create villages strong enough for the people coming up. And so I'm so like, I'm gonna try not to say it 1,000 times tonight, but I'm thankful for y'all. Thank you so much for dropping all these gems. And it's only been 33 minutes and 27 seconds, y'all.
Deuces, y'all. We will definitely continue this work together. We appreciate y'all.
So,
go ahead.
Everybody, we're going to just take a deep breath together.
That's important.
Because sometimes you get so much goodness, like in too short a period, and you don't have time to process it. So I want us to take all of a collective breath and use that breath to walk us into just all the gems that are about to be dropped again. And we're going to have to take another collective breath to process it. Dad, I'm going to kick it over to you to start announcing and letting folks know who they are going to hear from in the next part of tonight.
Okay. All right. So up first, I am bringing Condra Morris, Miss Latoya Flowers, Busola Saka, and two gentlemen who I have grown up around, Mr. Steve Lewis and Mr. Steve Lewis, and Son team, here with us tonight. So we are going to have some fun with this one. Like this, we're going to talk a little bit more about family tonight. Oh, Eva, I know you. Are you going to hang out or are you going to come back?
I'm going to watch from the back. Like I said, I've been a part of people's villages, but I am not I don't have no babies. So I'm going to bow out and remove myself from this space, but I will be watching diligently.
All right. See you later. Steve will be back momentarily, I assume. And if y'all see me like over here and over here and over here, it's like emails and text messages and, trying to make sure this whole thing works right. But thank you guys all for joining this evening. I am looking forward to this conversation and how, parenting and the community kind of join together to properly raise these babies. You can't hear?
I can't hear you.
Can everybody else hear me? Only you can't hear me, Steve. Hold on, let me stream. Okay, Steve Steen is back. Steve, can you hear everybody? No, Pop. All right, I'm sorry. Technical.
Yes.
You hear? Pop, you hear me?
Is it me?
Yes, it's you. All right, we're gonna figure out the technical difficulties momentarily. I apologize, y'all, but we'll start. Natalie Pipkin has joined us as well. Ladies, while they may be jumping on and off the stage, but I want everybody to introduce themselves, and then we're gonna kick this thing off. With Condra, sorry.
All right, good evening, everybody. I am Kendra Morris. I am the author of Why Every Child Needs a Village for Academic Success. I taught for 7 years before going into the nonprofit, where I currently work as the director of family partnerships. So I am focused on early childhood education. I believe the village starts in early ed. So I'm excited to be on stage with you all tonight.
Can you hear me?
Come on, you're on mute.
Wow. We are going to do a collective reset. A collective reset. So first, for everybody who's not talking, if y'all can stay on mute, Pop, if you can give me a thumbs up if you can hear, because he's just having the damnedest time. I don't know what's happening. Everybody else can hear me, correct? Okay.
Yes.
We are good. All right, Kendra, you've introduced yourself. Natalie, can you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, you can hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hello, I'm Natalie Pipkin. I am the mother of 2 self-directed learners. I am the owner of the Post Project Indie Community Drumming Initiative for Social, Cultural, and Emotional Development, and I am the owner and book curator of the Black World Schoolers mobile bookstore. Happy to be here. Can't hear.
Wow, so everything flows so much better than a second ago. We're good. We're gonna get it together. Busola, you have been fantastic in helping us with kick this thing off. You spent a lot of time talking about it. You've shared so much on PR, and you've shared an incredible story. So, why was it important for you to join the conversation tonight and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes, great. So I am Busola. I am a mom of 2. I have a 6-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. I am also the founder of Black Boy Thrive, which is an online platform that's advocating.
You're on mute, sis.
Busola, you got to unmute yourself. So I think that this is StreamYard's fault. I promise you, because it's happening with a bunch of different people. Okay, we roll with punches. Latoya, can you introduce yourself? We're gonna give Busola and Steve fixed.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Latoya Flowers from California, and I am a mother of 2. I have 2 sons, One is 25 years old and the other is 12. I'm also a teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years in Moreno Valley, California. I teach a grade called Transitional Kindergarten, which is one of the newest grades to the education system since it got started. And the reason why I wanted to join this conference is because I do believe it takes a village. In my school district, I'm the co-chair of the African American Parent Advisory Council, and our motto is "It takes a village." And I strongly believe in that. And since COVID hit, I made a platform on Instagram, and that's where I connected with Black on Black education. I've been following them, and I like the work that they do. Thank you. You're back on mute, Jamal.
And for Mr. Lewis Sr.
Peace and blessings, everyone. My name is Stephen Lewis Sr., and I have a 30-year career working with young people in the area of counseling. I'm also a filmmaker and a documentarian, a visual artist. So I've used those particular skills in my work over the years with young people to give them a platform to kind of express themselves in the third person. And, I'm just really, really, really happy to be a part of this, panel. I'm probably not going to say much because listening to the introductions, I mean, the knowledge on here is so rich, and my hair is grayer than anybody on the call. So, I've been around the sun a few times. So I'm interested to hear what new, innovative, incredible programs that this pool of incredible young people are doing. I've been connected with Jamal for many, many years, and the reason why I am actually on this call in this forum because he invited me, and I knew I was going to be in the fountain of youth and be able to get some, some nourishment. So I'm just excited to hear what's going to come out of this rich, robust conversation this evening. So thank you.
You're more than welcome. And Pop.
Beloved, yes, I too am first and foremost grateful to be here. Hopefully we can, you all can hear me. My name is Stephen Lewis Jr. or the second. I am a product of my village, so I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation. I just consider myself a servant. I love to serve our babies in all aspects that I do. I also have 3 babies of my own and a beautiful wife. I'm also an author and a speaker as well. So I'm grateful, and I thank everyone for this opportunity. Jamal, thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, Busola again.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. That was fine until I started talking. Can you hear me now? Okay. I am Busola Saka again. Yes. I am a mom of 2. I have a 6-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. I'm the founder of Black Boy Thrive, which is an online platform that's advocating for little Black boys in preschool and kindergarten to protect them from implicit and explicit biases in training and discipline. We empower parents with resources, connect them with experts to kind of help them navigate the school system for little Black boys. And I'm so excited to be here. Thank you all.
Okay. I think we are over our challenges and we're about to be able to get into it. So I appreciate everybody for joining. So the first thing I kind of want to know is what what does everybody as parents, think that they desire for schools? Like what do you want things to look like for your students? And Busola, you have an interesting story. We want to hear a little bit about your kind of in school, out of school situation and how you've how you've looked at it. So maybe you can start.
Sure. Thank you. So I'll keep my story short because it's very long. And every time I tell it, I get emotional again. Because it was just a very stressful time for us. My son was enrolled in a pre-K in a public school. We did the lottery and he got in, and it was the biggest mistake that we ever made, sending him to a public pre-K. We got phone calls every day from his teacher. he's not listening. He doesn't sit still. He's, aggressive. He threatened the teacher. And I'm like, whose kid is this? I don't know this child. Like, it was in and out of the principal's office, in and out of the teacher's office, in and out of meetings with school counselors, in and out of doctor's appointments, trying to figure out what was wrong. But there was nothing wrong with him. He was a 4-year-old Black boy in a classroom, the only Black child in his class, acting like a normal 4-year-old. But the problem is that when little Black boys act normal for their age, they're seen as aggressive, disruptive, defiant. They're just, labeled all kinds of ways and they try to push them out of school, or trying to make it look like they're just very difficult to teach, and it's not the case. So for me, we've talked about how, the village, it takes a village to raise the child. I always say that, and I have to give a background because I'm from Nigeria. So in Nigeria, the village is the neighbor. The village is the lady who owns the bakery across the street. The village is your grandma down the street. But we don't have that here. So the school is part of our village. And if the school is part of our village, we need the school to protect our boys. We need the school to make sure that they are learning, to make sure that they are treated just like other kids. Just like Timmy pushes his friend and you tell him, oh, that's not very nice. Do the same thing for our Black boys. Because we are living in a society where the Black man has a target on his back. And research has shown that this behavior, this attitude towards Black boys starts in preschool. They are 3-4-year-olds, and they are already looked at as aggressive, unteachable. They don't belong in a classroom, which is not so. They are just trying to grow and trying to live their lives. And so for me, what I want to see from the education system, from, this is having the school as part of our village, because our children spend a lot of time in school. They should be safe there. They should feel welcomed and not watched for behaviors. And they should feel like they're just as capable as any other child in the classroom.
Got it. Thank you so much. And we're gonna go on to Natalie this time. And Natalie, we met, and I know you have a whole different perspective around what your village looks like, because you kind of separated from the traditional school. So we want to hear a little bit about how that affects your thoughts on the village.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We left the school system about 3 years ago, and I will say we hear a lot about public schools and charter schools, and they get dogged out, and they have their issues, but I definitely want to highlight how private schools aren't any better. And I want to highlight that when people really had an uproar about Trump's having this new curriculum, the patriotic education curriculum, that already exists. It's the classical education model. There are thousands of schools, even in the homeschooling world, that curriculum is what is pushed to the forefront. That's what many Black and many other parents are using to educate their children at home. A complete Eurocentric curriculum that's not like public and charter, where you don't even do history enough, but when you do it, it's wrong. It's complete daily indoctrination in every subject, every day, reciting speeches from slave owners. It's the worst of the worst, and we experienced it. Of course, my mama went through school, I went through school, and it was the same old, but this was another level called the breeding ground of white supremacy. So we left that, but we were able to see not just the curriculum, but how other Black children were getting treated, and just why they call private school private, a lot of private things going on. So when we left the school system, it was hard for one reason, because we were advocates for other children. My children were standing up for other children. So that was a hard thing. So for us, when we left, it was about how can we still be that? How can we still be a part of that village? How can we still, how can we be louder on the outside of this system? So we created an online platform called Black World Schoolers, which is blogging and sharing our journey into home education. But soon we start sharing free educational resources, and then now we have a bookstore. So the village for us, especially as unschoolers, it depends on time and place and our children's needs, because we're self-directed learners. So it's not about whoever's in close proximity is our village, or whoever is doing what we do, how we do it, is our village. It's about our children's needs, their interests. How does this person, what resources they have, what do they offer? My mom is the village because she teaches them how to sew, and the guy who does pottery down this, in the church is a part of the village because he teaches them pottery, and the black cello teacher is their village. But also, like the other panel was saying before, we get to really, really choose who the village is. And I think everybody gets to. I mean, when you're in school, of course, those people are there, but that may not be your village, and it does not have to be. They are people who you are doing life with for a period of time, but that does not have to be your village. And anybody that is not in complete is not living in complete contrast to that oppressive system can't be a part of my village. If you haven't been deschooling yourself, if you're not willing to deschool yourself or decolonize, or you're still using punitive, methods towards Black children, if you think a village means I get to spank your child or I get to chastise your child, because we hear those stories growing up where the whole neighborhood got to whoop me before I go home. Then my mama did it too. For us, that ain't funny. That's not a thing that I embrace. So the village for me is about respecting children. It's respecting the youngest people in our homes. The village is intergenerational exchange of information, because I'm not the holder of all knowledge and information. My children have things to teach me as well. The village is a place that we get to choose, as others said, a place where they get to be safe, be free. And the village provides rich resources, not resources that they feel like will put them on the road to success. The resources that they need, not what you want them to have because you're afraid of this system. You're afraid. No, the village doesn't live in fear. We live in faith and we live in freedom. So the village for me is not just, just you're Black and you got kids as a role. No, we're very intentional about what this village looks like. And it doesn't have to be the person who was there from the beginning and who will be there till the end. The village changes all the time. It's based on needs and based on, that's how relationships work. Some people are there from the beginning to the end. Sometimes it's for a season, and that's okay too in our village.
I love it. I definitely love it. Do I go with the senior first or do I go with the junior first? Let's hear the junior first, actually. So you're a son and a father. So from your perspective, you've seen what it was like, to come up and go through school with a father who is all about your growth, and he was like all of our fathers. You know what I'm saying? How does that, taking the perspective of how you grew up, how does it look in your kids' school? Like, do they have that same kind of village developed? And what types of things can be done to make sure that they do?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, to your first question, absolutely. One of the things, I mean, my village, my pops, I mean, talking about him first and foremost, I mean, literally, he is the reason why I'm comfortable in my skin, right? I mean, I was at every banquet. I was at every breakfast. I was at when you name it, he had me along with him. I was at lectures. I've seen some of the greats speak. And at the time, I didn't realize what the significance of that was, right? I didn't know the significance of hearing Al Sharpton speak. I didn't know the significance of seeing Jesse Jackson speak. I didn't know the significance of that. My dad taking me to Harlem, and I'm sitting in lecture halls and all types of stuff like that. I didn't understand that. But what that instilled in me was the ability for me to be able to be comfortable in my own skin. Mm-hmm. And me growing up, I grew up in Ossining. I spent most of my summers in Greenberg, and that. And when it was it was predominantly white. So dealing with that, but then had my father who had a kufi and a long black leather trench coat, you know what I mean? And he was all the way in the movement. He was all the way in the movement. It gave me such a vast experience and exposure that I could walk into any room now and feel comfortable because my village has impacted me in such a way that has given me the confidence, right? So how that looks with my children, we just started, this is our first year homeschooling our children. And I'm seeing, you know, different things in the curriculum that I definitely have to, my wife and I are supplementing. But as far as the curriculum is concerned, or as far as the village, now that we're homeschooling the kids, we do have a curriculum that we do. But now my mother-in-law, who is an educator for 30 years, she teaches my kids science. My father-in-law teaches my kids Bible, and we also have a lady. We also have a lady as well, who lives in a few towns over from us, Miss Neal, who is a retired social worker, who's also African American. She loves our babies, so she teaches my kids piano. And then we're also looking at someone who's going to be teaching them different languages as well. So I'm learning right now. I'm building as we're talking about village. I'm building the village and using the principles from my village to kind of transcend generations. So it's a pretty great opportunity.
Dope. And Mr. Steve Lewis Sr., how does it feel to have, you know, such an incredible son who's and be sharing the stage with him and communicating with you know, about these subjects, knowing that, you know, he's super duper you know, proud to be a son. How's that feel?
It's you know, it's incredible. I mean, I probably can't really express it in words, you know, how proud I am. And then, you know, when I see him with his sons and his daughter, you know, reflecting some of the same things that, you know, that he learned, you know, it's just a wonderful thing. And I mean, when you talk about a village, you know, like I said, it's interesting that he mentions that kind of stuff, because in the last segment, you know, you talked about community working with the schools, and the lectures and the things that he was exposed to, that was made available to me because I lived in a community, Greenberg, that had a community center, and it had powerful Black men in that community center who wanted to make sure that Black kids, you know, got certain kinds of exposure. You know, and it's interesting. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was talking about my son, and you know, I remember being in doing parent-teacher conferences, and I think he might have been in the, you know, 4th or 5th grade. And I sat down with the teacher, and she was saying, you know, he's so talkative, and you know, he's moving around all the time, and you know, it's hard for me to keep him focused, and you know, and so on and so forth. But she said, you know, when I sit down and talk to him, it's amazing how, you know, his dialect and how he can hold a conversation with me, and I can tell that he's been exposed to a lot of things. So I think one of the keys, you know, and I'm saying, you know, he's talking about me, but I always give homage to, you know, his mother, because she was the backbone. You know, I was able to introduce him to and expose him to all of these things, but she was the backbone that allowed me and worked with me to do that. You know, and everybody says, "Oh, Papa's just like you. You got your personality," but I'm like, y'all haven't met his mother. You know what I'm saying? And she's a strong, you know, she was a strong Black woman who understood that she needed, you know, he needed his father to raise him. You know, so that's an important part of the village. You know, the two parents working together. Also, you know, what I heard about, you know, the sister that's doing the stuff with Black boys at the early elementary level. We know that that Black children are very spirited children. If you go into a hospital, and you know, and this is just reality. I'm just giving it to you straight. If you go in the hospital in a nursery and you look at little Black children and little Black babies and little white babies, the little Black baby is doing his thing. He's trying to walk already. He's pulling your face. He's doing all of this other stuff. And you know, and literally, I've seen, you know, little white kids are much more docile, and that's only my opinion. You know, so as these kids grow up in our families, they're going to church. You know, they're hearing the preacher ha and you know, and all of that, and this is they're being indoctrinated in this African culture that still runs through our DNA, that hasn't been washed out, no matter how much trauma that we've gone through in this, you know, in this wilderness of North America. So you know, I mean, again, I'm just so excited to, you know, to hear what you guys are doing. I don't want to talk a long time because, you know, I know there's some rich, you know, there's a whole bunch of rich information that we're going to be given. But I think it's important, again, for parents, community, to connect together and, you know, and create a nurturing environment for our young people. And the most important thing is exposure, 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 exposure. We got to expose our kids to everything that we possibly can. So that's my 1.5 cents. I hope I answered the question, brother.
You did. You definitely did. You definitely did. And Latoya is up next. And what I want to hear from you, Latoya, is, you know, I know you have an older and a younger child, and I want to kind of understand the differences of you know, how you wanted the village to interact with the older, how you wanted the village to interact with the younger, like what you learned through the overall process of raising two different children.
Very good question. I always reflect on that, like, often. With my oldest son, I was very young when I had him. I had him the year after I graduated from high school. And so I was in college trying to correct something that was so-called, oh, you're not supposed to have a baby yet. So I was supposed to go to the military, but I got pregnant. So it's like, oh, you better go to college. And so my main focus was on getting through college and providing for him. And I didn't understand the complete village scenario. I grew up with the village, but I myself didn't know how to seek the village. So my mom did help me with him and other family members, but it was just mainly like, you know, just me and him. And also, I didn't really kind of grasp it. When you're young, your main thing that you're thinking about is keeping your baby alive. Like, is he alive? So I didn't really understand that part. Fast forward when he became a teenager and he was going through his teenage phases or whatever, and his father was always kind of like preaching to him this macho attitude. I started to say, okay, well, maybe I need to seek different mentors for him. So then I started to understand the village more and trying to find somebody to like intervene and show him different things than what his father was showing him. And then when I had my other son, which was 12 years after I had my first baby, of course, I'm a different person. I'm a grown lady. I've experienced some things. I know more who I am. And at that time, I had been a teacher for about, probably like about 12 years at that time. So just experiencing being a teacher, seeing what our brown babies go through, I knew that I had to do something different. And the reason being is my oldest son was diagnosed with a learning disability. And if I would have known what I know now and at that point, I would have done something different. So my approach with my younger one was to get a village for him immediately, do things differently as far as having different experiences for him, having him exposed to different people that weren't just in our family, but people outside of our family, community, different experiences. So my approach or my thinking is that I wished as a first-time mom, I would have like remembered that, thought about that. But I think the reason why I didn't, when I grew up, we did have a village. We had grandmothers, aunts, uncles, cousins. But then the next generation, they weren't as close when we started to have babies. And so that generation kind of fell by the wayside as far as the village was concerned. So I think it kind of hurt our children. And then also, like when I was growing up, my grandmothers were kind of like older grandmothers, grandfathers, but my parents were younger. So it was like, you know, they were still going through their own things of figuring out who they were. And so we didn't have the same grandparent structure. It was more like fun instead of like on the teaching level, because they're new grandparents and they might not have known. And sometimes you'll see when you have like two kids and one kid will say, oh, well, mom used to spank me, but mom let you get away with this. So I think it was the same thing with my parents' generation. They were being different than what their parents were being. And I think that the village it didn't fall away, but it was more lax because my grandparents' village was like very hands-on. They didn't ask permission to be involved. They just did it. And so that's my take now on the village is me being a teacher and being in the education system. A lot of parents will look to me, especially parents that look like me. They'll say, oh, okay, well, you're like me, so I can connect with you. And I've taken it up on myself to be the change that I want to see. And so I offer to them what I wanted as a young person, what I didn't know that I needed. And so I don't approach it in a way like, okay, I'm going to tell you what to do. But if they gravitate towards me, then I give them tips and hints. And I also do it in a non-judgmental way. And I try to say hey, I understand what you're going through. I've been through that. Let's talk about it. There might be a different way. And I just try to, I don't try, but I do purposely build relationships with them so I can see where they're coming from, what their experience is, and then meet them where they are and not try to bombard them with too much mentorship or telling them what to do, but I'm just available if they need me.
Right. Thank you. We've got a whole bunch of different perspectives on, what the village, looks and feels like, and last but certainly not least, somebody wrote a book about it, so she gets to chime in as well. Kendra, why does every child need a village for academic success?
Like I shared earlier, I worked as a classroom teacher for 7 years, and then I'm also one of 10 children, but I was raised by a single mother. Mm-hmm. So for me, there were times when my parents weren't able to attend school events or they weren't as involved. I went to a predominantly white school and their families were always involved. And because my parents were working multiple jobs, they couldn't my mom couldn't attend those events. So my teachers stepped up, my uncles and aunts stepped up. Mm-hmm. And so when I became a classroom teacher and I worked in a predominantly Black school district, here in Prince George's County, I saw the need that the parents had. But when there were teachers who didn't understand that, I saw a disconnect because it was, this parent doesn't want to be involved. This parent doesn't want to do so and so. But they weren't taking the time to get to know what was going on or to show the parents how to support their children academically at home and model some of those strategies, and also listen to what they were saying or about their educational experiences, because maybe they didn't have a good one. So in my classroom, it was important for me not only to teach my students, but to get to know their families and to add their culture and their experiences into the classroom and learn from the families. And so I had a little girl who was very quiet when she was in kindergarten, and she came to my classroom, and there's all these stereotypes that follow sometimes the children from year to year. And I chose to challenge that stereotype and get to know the family through parent conferences and informal drop-offs. And I found out that her older sister was going through a traumatic health experience, and she had been with her family. So the mom came in and shared that experience, and together we connected resources, and she began to open up over time because school was a safe place for her. But it was because I took the time to get to know her family and bring things into her educational experience that she had interest in. So I feel like it changes when educators, community partners, and families work together for children. I feel like it's the whole child. You can't just focus on academics, because if they don't have their basic needs, they're not going to be successful. They're not going to show up ready to learn if they're coming to school hungry, or if their electricity went off the night before. If they don't have those resources and we're not connecting them to those resources, and then also using their strengths and what their family has to bring into the classroom. So I wrote the book just because I believe that a lot of new teachers, they have so much on their plates to learn about, and they need to know that it's about the relationships. Once you foster those relationships within your community, within your school, with your families, it changes everything about education. So that's why I believe they all need a village.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I'm bringing everybody back into the fold because we're about to talk. Like, you know what I'm saying, we're gonna have a discussion. I want you guys to bounce things back and forth off of each other, because we're gonna start the process of, like, kind of solving for some of the challenges that separate the village from the home, from the kids, and we're gonna try to understand what the best ways are to go about solving for that issue. So one thing, and we'll start this one with Latoya, with Busola, actually. Like, how does this advocacy thing work in the space when when the schools are, like, trying to push kids out, like, and again, everybody else wrap their mind around the crazy type of things that happen when kids get pushed out of schools. Like, what are the ways that the community can then support them?
That's a very great question, and that's something that I'm trying to figure out myself. I think that a lot of times, parents and the community in general don't really know how to navigate the school system. They don't really understand it. They don't. There are a lot of nuances and just things happening behind the scenes that can catch parents off guard and not know how to handle these situations that push our kids out of school. For me, some strategies that I've, learned from talking to education lawyers and child psychologists and, other educators is, sweating the small stuff. Nothing is too small to make the hair on your hand stand up about your child in school. It doesn't matter. A lot of times we talk ourselves out of it, like, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, maybe he did do. No, we have to sweat the small things, and not in a combative way. We're not trying to fight. We're not trying to go to school and fight the teachers all the time. But really, the first step is empowering parents in the community to speak up. We have to use our voice. It's the most powerful thing that we can use to influence change. If we're not talking about what's going on, or we're talking amongst ourselves, which is what tends to happen, right? So one parent will say, "Oh, this happened at school today," and it's like, "Oh, that happened to me too," and we just say, "Oh, me too, me too, me too, me too," and we just me too our way around, and then everyone's like, "Okay, well, have a great day." No, we have to speak up in schools when we see something wrong, and I know that it's easier said than done, because a lot of people don't want their children to be picked on, right? You don't want to say something because you don't want the teacher to now hate your child, or you don't want your child to be targeted, and be punished unfairly because your mom is always causing a ruckus or whatever. But the stakes are too high in this time and in this day and age and where we are in this country to not say something. And I think for me, that's where it starts. And, another thing that I do, and I know that I'm coming from a place of privilege, I will say this, is I am super involved. Like, this situation with my son had me quit my job. I had to quit my job because I just couldn't balance, the demands of a job and making sure that I'm at that school. So when the school calls, I am the first one there, because you're going to know that I'm not playing with my child. And I'm not fighting, but it's me communicating with the teachers every day. Hey, how did he do today? How, what are some things that you all are learning? How can I support that at home? Can you send him some extra worksheets to come home and work on? Here's how his weekend went. I tell him, hey, we had a rough weekend. Something happened. If he's emotional today, like, you are going to know that this child is my priority, and I want him to get an education that I am paying for. I know that Natalie had said, public schools get all the bad rap. Private schools, I would argue, are worse because they make up their own rules as they go along. They just make it up, because we, had issues in public school, but he never got suspended in public school, but he got suspended in private school because they just decided that, just come get him. So, making sure that we are as involved as we can. And I know, Kendra, you said that, you know, some parents just don't have the time, and I completely get it. I understand. But as much as we possibly can, carve out time to show up at the school, to be there and let them know that we are involved, we are watching what's going on, we're on top of things. And one last thing, one question that I always pose to my son's teacher and, you know, the school staff is, whatever the problem is, how can we solve it together? Because I want to be your partner. I don't want us to be on either side of the table talking about my child. I want us to be on the same side of the table talking about how we can tackle this problem together. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say my son is perfect. 5-year-old, 6-year-old boys, y'all know, they wild out sometimes. And it's like, dude, what's going on? But, you know, making sure that we're also taking into account that children are emotional, they're learning, they're growing. And as teachers and as parents, we have to be on the same side of the table to help them.
Got it. So you actually helped frame the question a little bit better. You know what I mean? I want to change the nature of the question for everybody. And again, you guys can jump in behind one another as well. But let's just talk. Like, what are the correct ways for parents to interact with the schools, as well as community centers? Like, what's parents' responsibility to the ecosystem and making sure that it works and sticks together? So let's go to Pop.
I think the Queen, she said it beautifully. Me, again, I'm kind of new into the space, but my I believe it was Thayer, my oldest son. I had actually had the experience of having to go by myself to speak with teachers as the father, right? And typically it's the mom who goes to teach, goes to talks to the teacher. You know, she has communication with the teacher. But I had to, my wife actually, I mean, it was by default, I'm not going to lie, because my wife was working. She couldn't make it. So I happened to be off that day. So I said, okay, no problem. I'm going to go up and I'm going to talk to the teacher. And when I went to speak to the teacher, for what I decided to do was, when I went in there, before we even started talking about my son, I asked her how she was doing. What was her, how was she doing? What was going on with, you know, with her? And because there were some different things going on, I caught wind of things that was going on in the school district. So I just kind of asked her how she was doing. And we were only supposed to have maybe a 25-minute session, I believe, because they had time slotted, you know, for parent-teacher conference. But she spent 10 minutes, almost 15 minutes, just telling me how difficult the transition has been for her. How she has to travel from an hour and a half to school, and from school, an hour and a half. She has her own kid who is recently starting a new school. So she had so many things, and she sat there and she spoke with me and just was really transparent with me. And so that allowed me to not only say to her, I appreciate you for what you do for my son, but at the same time, I want us to, as was stated, I want us to have a relationship, and I want you to know that I genuinely care about you and your well-being, because your well-being is going to now directly affect the well-being of my child.
That's good.
Yes,
that's good.
And let me just jump in, Jamal. Sorry. I know one of the things that, you know, that we developed at the community center, when I started at the community center, a very young man, and I was trying to bring in new and innovative programs. And one of the things that we were doing was working with the school. And, you know, I used to go into these principals hearings and, you know, if it got to that level, to the superintendent's hearings. And somebody said, I was trying to take notes, but somebody said, talked about parents being intimidated and not understanding how the school system works. And I saw that firsthand. I mean, a lot of times you have parents who've had a very bad experience in their educational experience. So when they come into a stale, cold room with people sitting on one side of a table that look really educated, they feel that intimidation that they felt in the classroom when they were young. or they couldn't get this assignment done or whatever. And so they come in scared. So they don't really know how to advocate for themselves. They don't really know how to stand up, for themselves. And then the professionals are talking a lot of legalese or, education talk that they don't really understand, but are embarrassed to maybe say, can you answer that for me again? I'm not completely clearly understanding what you're saying. And they go through this process, and then they leave the room, and nothing gets resolved. They're frustrated, and a lot of times, unfortunately, they turn that frustration to the kids. So what we did at the community center, again, and I heard this statement, and I heard it. This is the second time I heard it tonight. I want to be the change that I want to see. So when we went back and we talked, I said, you know what? One of the things that our families, because the same families that were coming through the center had kids going through the school district. So, we said we need, one of the things that we need is an educational advocate. So what would happen is kids would come to us first, the parents would come to us first, and they say, I got this letter from the school. This is, I have this hearing that I have to go through. These are the things that they're asking me. Can you just give me an idea of what I'm about to experience? So what we were able to do is explain to them exactly what they were going to experience. These are the things that you might want to ask, take some notes. This is what you want them to tell you. And if you still feel uncomfortable, you can authorize us to come into the meeting with you. So we went into a lot of meetings with parents, just as their, as their support system. Now, once they get in the meeting and they know that we're there, they can express themselves, they can self-advocate for themselves and their children. They can articulate what they're feeling, the frustrations that they're feeling. So I think, again, what I would like to see in terms of the village is more, wherever your kids, because, sometimes administrations used to come down to the center and they'd be like, the kids don't act like this when they're at school. You know what I'm saying? They're so well behaved and they're so whatever, because one of the things that the kids know, is the saying that says they don't really care what you know. They want to know that you care. You know what I'm saying? So they know that they're in a caring, loving environment at the community center, and they're in a very stale environment at the school. And it's, it's not the teacher's fault in a lot of cases, because they got a lot of personalities that they're dealing with. And like Pop just said, their own stuff. But I think it's important to have advocates in the community that understand this stuff, people who aren't as busy, that you can sit down with and say, listen, I'm getting ready to go through this thing. Like, what's going on? Or my kid is going through whatever. And, the other thing is we need to talk amongst ourselves, because like you said, all of us may be going through the same thing, but we're living in our own bubble. And if we can sit down together and say, oh man, you know what? My kid is dealing with that too. And we can share with each other, then again, that's therapy for everybody. And that will help, raise all of our kids. So I think, again, the village, we're going back to the village.
Thank you. We're going to kick it over to Kendra. We're going to have you jump in again and talk about, how people that are in the community but don't necessarily have kids themselves, like, how do they, go about the business of advancing the overall village?
Yeah, I think that it's just being involved, right? I personally don't have children, but I have nieces and nephews. I'm an educator. So it's whenever you're given an opportunity to step up and lead and participate. So in my role at my full-time job, I work for a nonprofit, and we lead these things called family academies. And so it's a community where we actually meet with families 3 times a day. And then if we need bilingual supports, we have an interpreter on there as well. But we're actually asking questions, getting to know them, teaching them social, emotional, and literacy and math skills that they need to know. And then we're also learning from them, right? They're telling us about different elements, but we're taking the time to meet with them. So I was really intentional. If I was going to leave the classroom, I wanted to go to an organization where I would have a greater impact. And so I think it's just looking for ways that you can serve. So looking beyond yourself and just taking advantage of the times that are presented to you. Like, it may be a parent. I get calls all the time from family members and things like that about educational questions, and just making yourself available. Ask those questions, because Stephen, I think you mentioned it about teachers and all the stuff that they carry. There's a lot that are on the teachers and educators right now. They have had to pivot like never before. And I think they don't get the recognition that they deserve sometimes. And so when you can step in to help a teacher or a parent, just make yourself available to do that and be the village that the children need and deserve.
I love how everybody is talking about, you know, understanding and how the village, it really is a us, you know, not a I thing. And it, you know, seemingly that's just so different than, you know, what we've been taught a lot, you know, in reference to how this country operates. And so I'm heartened that we as a community are starting to understand, you know, what this village needs to look like. And I just look forward to it continuing to have tighter and tighter, be knit tighter and tighter. And as we really start to solve these educational challenges, it's going to be magical watching the ecosystem work together. Latoya, you're up next.
Oh, thank you. Everything that you guys have been saying is wonderful. One thing is, as a teacher and also as a mom, but more of as a teacher, if you're a parent, the biggest thing is, like, when you're saying you're going into the school, when you go into the school, it's best to come in as a partner. But before you even have to go in as a partner, research the schools that your kid is going to go to. Take them down to the school, see how they feel in that environment. When your child is younger and you go to a daycare, you take your child with you to the daycare to see if it's a good fit. So you can also do the same thing. And if it's not a good fit and the people there don't match, like if there's no one there that looks like your child, if you don't feel love, even if the people don't look like your child, but if you don't feel love or compassion, or there's not, you need to look for programs that your child can be involved in, things that are of their interest, like maybe science, or they might like to play with Legos, or they might like to do drama, dance, art. You need to find a school that caters to your child's needs and also helps your child grow. Because oftentimes we think that we have to just take our kid to the school that's in our community, but and we think, oh, okay, well, we got in this good community now, so let's take our kid there. But is that the best fit for our child? So before we even have to go through a problem, research where you're sending your child. And if you can find people in your village, like at your church or in your community center, or you might just be at the grocery store talking to someone, find out different ways that people are educating their kids, because before the pandemic hit, homeschooling was an option and still is an option. And we are a child's first teachers, so we need to explore those options before we even get into the school system.
Thank you. Yes, it continues to come together. Natalie.
Yes, I think one important thing before we're talking about the parent coming into school and having that relationship with the teachers is that parent relationship with their own child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we came in as partners, the trust was there. So I'm not at the school all day. I have to trust that what you said happened, or what you said they taught, or what's going down with another student is real. So the relationship at home has to be tight, so that you're not on their head when the teacher's on their head, that you know that what's going down is real because they're telling the truth, because you have that trust. So I think that was a big part while we were in school. We were a team, and still are. You know what I mean? I'm not there, so I'm going to trust you. And that's the other part too. It shouldn't be like that, right? They should be able to just be children and enjoy what they're doing. But the other part is teaching them how to self-advocate. Again, I'm not there. I don't need, I don't need to be the person that comes in every time something goes down. Teach your children how to document. Yes, when they're in the first and second and third grade, one sentence is enough. At 2:00, the teacher called the student stupid, which is a real thing that really happened. Teach them how to document simple stuff. And who else was around. Let me call their parents so I can see what's going on. That's how we did stuff. And also from that point, I'm going to show you how to take that little documentation and type a short little email to your principal. And then you're going to set up a meeting, right? And then if you need me, I'll come in as backup. But you see, I can't come save the day. If I'm going to choose to put my child in the system, I got to teach them, put them on game to work within it, not to conform to it, but to show up and be who they are supposed to be. You know what I mean? Use their voice at that moment, not wait till they become an adult or get to college and learn something new. You got to put your children on game from the get-go if you choose to put them in the school system. And if you're a teacher who is an advocate for Black children, then you have a responsibility to put them on game. Don't have these kids in the system and then wait till something goes down and say, well, it's real messed up in there. No. Put them in there of it and the details of it, not to scare them or put fear in them, but to have an awareness so they can come through like, oh, no, I don't play that game. I'm playing chess. Like we're getting to the other side. Like, you know what I mean? So we have that responsibility as a village to not pretend like, because we're afraid to tell them the truth because they say, because like my child did me like this. Let me tell you, I have two. I have an 11-year-old, 8-year-old. At the time was a 5-year-old and 8-year-old. 8-year-old had been in there for 3-4 years. We had made our little thing. You know what I mean? We were working through it, but it was tough because, you know how they do our boys. My 5-year-old, they were teaching some lesson, whatever. He came home and I'm giving him the rundown. He said, Mom, if they're always lying to us, why do you keep sending me back there? So 9 months later, we was out because I couldn't give him a good reason. All I knew was that my mama did it, my grandma did it, we did it, we can work it out, we can navigate. Man, that's exhausting. We can navigate or we can build something. And we can all build something. You know, we can create learning centers. I don't believe we have to keep trying to fix or reform what is here, but we have brilliant educators, brilliant parents, brilliant people in the neighborhoods who are mechanics and all kinds of things, artists and herbalists and all kinds of resources. We can create learning centers and self-directed learning centers, and churches can be learning centers. Remember the freedom schools in the 60s? You know what I'm saying? Like they were doing it. We had this, but then we integrated. Anyway, but the point is, our children got to be their own advocates because mama's not going to always be there to save the day. And that's part of autonomy too. I can take care of me. Mommy's got my back. Daddy's got my back. Grandma got my back. But we don't have all these eyes in there. You got to be able to stand up for yourself and know that I'm going to come in and back you up so nobody's going to harm you. So don't be afraid. You know what I'm saying? If the worst comes to worst, we'll just get up out of here. You know what I mean? You got to have a plan B too. because we had to have a plan B. You got to have a plan B.
Absolutely. You guys I'm loving what you guys are sharing. We're gonna jump into like a quick lightning round where everybody's gonna answer this question, a hard question, but you're gonna answer it like and then just say your goodbye. So the question is it's all centered on what we talked about last night, like student voice in this whole entire space. How should we be? Yeah, I can't ask this question and then ask you to answer it quick. Like, there's just no way to do it. But try. How do we make student voice the center of the school, of the community, of the household? You know what I mean? Where we really center around developing them into the people who are going to create the future we all desire. And we will do the lightning round in reverse order: Latoya, Natalie, Kendra, Busola, Steve, and Steve.
As far as student voice is concerned, going back again, like I said, the parent is the first teacher. So it is good to teach your child to speak up for themselves, to respectfully voice their opinion and give reasons why they have that opinion. And going into the school system, as far as students are concerned, when I'm teaching my students, I ask them, like, okay, do you guys like this? Do you not like this? What do you want to learn more of? Like, what can we change? And I ask their opinion. And last night I was blown away by some of those students and the things that they were saying. I was like, wow, these students are so empowered. They know who they are. They're not afraid. And I know when I was growing up, I was more like shy, or children were seen and not heard.
Right.
And that wasn't a good thing because lots of things happen to kids. So now that I do know that, and now that I see that we're there for the kids, If we're not asking them what they want or what they need, why are we there? So I'm very into empowering students to use their voice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us tonight. I said, Natalie.
Okay, ask me again. He said how we center student voices.
Yep. Well, I mean, you actually already answered that, in your role. You kind of dropped that. So, just any last thing that you want to share before we head out?
Listen to children. Listen to people without degrees. Listen to people with life experience. Just listen, collaborate, and learn from each other. And that's all I got to say.
Okay. Kendra?
I would say create opportunities to hear their voice, listen to their voice, and value their voice, and make the changes that are needed based upon what they share.
Okay. Usola.
One thing that I've been doing with my 6-year-old and my 4-year-old is, when we're having conversations, I try not to answer questions for them all the time. I say, what do you think? And that's a practice that we just started, but it's so powerful because it makes them realize, oh, I have my own thoughts about this, and I have this space to share it. And I think that's the most important thing, is to let them know that they have their own thoughts about things, and it's not wrong, but they can also share it, and that we as parents and teachers and educators and community listen to them. So for me, the big thing is, and my kids are little, so they're still growing, but my big thing is, what do you think? And why do you think that? I want them to be able to think for themselves, so that they can grow up and know that their thoughts, what they think, matters. And it's not just because they're kids doesn't mean that they don't know anything, because they be knowing stuff.
Yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely positively do. I want to thank each and every one of you ladies. Steve, you guys both hang out, because I'm actually going to ask you that the next person joining the stage is somebody I think you both know. So, gentlemen, thank you guys. You've been informative tonight, and we got another brother coming to add some more to the equation. Somebody else from our home. Okay.
Peace and love, family. What's going on?
Yo, thank you for joining us, man. This right here, I cannot have. I didn't even fathom that this is the way we were going to do this. You know what I'm saying? But certain circumstances happen, and it's just like, this makes sense. So. Oh man, this is Greenberg in the house. 914, our EYL family. They people are about to hear about Greenberg, man. Yes. Real talk. Real talk. Introduce yourself, brother.
All right, peace, family. My name is Kamal Patah. Years in Greenberg, from 5 years old to about 18 years old. Educator for close to 30 years. Currently the executive director of Aquabin Enterprise, educational consultancy that customizes rites of passage, culturally relevant practices, and healing-centered engagement in learning communities, faith-based communities, and anywhere where our children, and specifically boys and young men of African ancestry, reside. It's an honor to be here.
So, even I, talk all the time, like we have the conversation around, like blackness and how, I walk into any room feeling super duper, black, but white people, black people, it's you guys gave me a sense of self, man. Y'all centered me at a very, very young age, and I did not know that that's what was occurring, and it's such appreciation, Pop. I don't know if you felt any of the same way, or what interaction you had with Brother Tar. I know your father definitely did. He was always around, but talk to me about if you know what I'm saying here.
Oh, absolutely. It's always love. You know what I'm saying? And greeting the same way. Peace, family. Like it's always in our interactions, it's always just a sense of pride, man. Like Like, you know what I'm saying? It's always a breath of fresh air, looking you in the eye and just and shaking your hand and embracing you, man. It's always refreshing. And it's always been, and in every interaction it's been like that. And to your point too, Jamal, like, who would have known that, just kind of being in the room, like they say, you just got to get in the room. Who would have known that just being in the room would glean so much treasure, that when you look back, you're like, whoa, like you pulling stuff out of your tool bag that you didn't, like, where did this come from?
Right.
And then you track it back, like, oh no, that's oh, that was Greenberg, oh, that was the center, oh, that was, you know what I'm saying? And so it's just like a never ending, just beautiful story, man.
So it was Arise for me, all reaching in search of excellence. It was Project Discovery, and what was the other one, Steve? In the center. Oh my God, why am I not remembering?
Were you a part of Keep It Real or Crossroads?
Keep It Real. Yes.
Me.
At MLK.
Yeah.
MLK too.
MLK.
So actually, let's talk about Arise though, man. Like how did y'all come up with that? I was younger, you know what I'm saying, when I was coming in, so I wasn't a part of like the leadership team or anything like that until later. Help me understand, like, how you guys put that together for the school.
Well, I inherited Arise, and I want to pay homage and respect and love and honor to Jonathan Mosley, who was the founder of Arise. So I'm at Hampton University. Jonathan is 3 years older than me. And, I'm about to embark on my teaching career. And he's already situated at Woodlands as a social studies teacher. So it must have been my last year. And I came to just shadow him and observe his day as I was getting situated and getting prepared to do my student teaching down in Virginia. And so, man, it was a powerful day. He picked me up, brother bought me lunch, and then we went over to the school and we just went through his daily regiment as a middle school teacher at the time. And a part of the after school activity was Arise, which he was the founder of. And if you remember Jonathan, he was a part of the NOAA program out at Hofstra, which was some of the formal ideas of that helped to birth Arise came from the experience of the mentor that he had out at Hofstra. And just, again, taking the baton of some of the best practices that were already living in the Greenberg community as it related to the healthy socialization and education of Black young men, right? And so that was the birth. I took on the baton that brother Jonathan, and with my skill set around what I was focused to, was centered around rites of passage. I infused that element into the work.
Okay, we're gonna come back to rites of passage for sure. I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm very curious. Like, how much did you guys work together in the community, like, as we were growing up? Because I feel like I saw you in school, I saw you at the center. Like, what was the connection? Like, I probably saw you both some places, but I'm not remembering. So how did y'all connect?
That's an interesting question, and I'm going to leave it to the younger man. Because it's like Pop said, it's like, sometimes it's hard for me to remember where relationships began. I just know they exist, and it feels like they've existed forever. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard for me to put that, where it began thing on it. But again, I just remember, just loving, this brother all the time. And I don't know. And I mean, maybe it was, when we were younger, his mother was a nurse at the health center. And I mean, that sister treated us like royalty, man. I mean, my mother knew her. We all knew, we all knew her when we went to the health center, and we just loved her. You know what I'm saying? And I guess, there was just a natural transition when Kamal and his brother came along. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, we've worked on various projects and programs, and we've had many, many, many conversations about a lot of different things. So, I mean, that's a difficult question for me, because I really honestly don't remember specifically, how we, work together. I just know that it's been You know what I'm saying? And it's been a wonderful journey. So Kamal, maybe you can help me, kind of remember some of that.
Sure, brother.
This what happens when you get up in age, man. Go ahead.
This is it. This is it. And when you kind of move in a village, bro, you kind of like take things in terms of relationships. So formally, in terms of doing the work that we're doing, I would have to say is when I started, my young career at the community center, and Stephen was, overseeing the Crossroads program, and I was someone who worked not directly with Crossroads, but I was in the mix of that, and coming up as a counselor, and then later on when I was working in the reading program with Miss Oliver, Brother Joseph, Sister Lori, Sister Jennifer Safara. I came in that age, which I would consider the golden age of the Know Thyself era. And during that time, we were doing a lot of strategizing and planning with a high intention on identity, and really focus on our historical, cultural contributions. And as I started to grow and emerge in that world, the person that was always the unseen reality and just capturing our visual alchemist was Brother Stephen, and so he captured some events where ASCAC was the Association for the Study of Classical Civilizations, African civilizations, came to the center, and some of our notable scholars were present. Dr. John Henrik Clark,
yes,
Professor Smalls, and being that I was one of the emerging cultural custodians, I was responsible for helping to usher and guide and be the ambassador for Greenberg as we welcome these luminaries. And so Brother Stephen was always on that scene, and just on the informal side, countless nights, with the moon shining over us, just building about brotherhood, life, the journey towards manhood in our community.
I mean, well, you guys did, a beyond fantastic job. My best friends in the world are the people who I was in Arise with and people who I hung out in the center with. So y'all created the spirit of something. Everywhere I go, I tell people I grew up in a special place. Like, I rock with their kids. I'm Uncle Jamal I got a bunch of, of nephews and nieces, and it's the spirit that you guys put into me that helped that to happen. So I'm actually going to bring Eva back up, my daughter, who obviously I love very much. I'm wondering if she has any questions for y'all, and I definitely do want to make sure that we get the rites of passage thing in moment before we head out too. Come on.
I think my only question is, my high school and middle school experience looked very, 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 very different from my dad, because I went one tiny little zip code over to Valhalla that demographically looks extraordinarily different from Greenberg. And so we have different kind of coming of age stories just from that reality. And so if you could just talk about how we bring the spirit of what you all were able to create into so many more communities, because the way that he felt held was not my experience. And I want less students, regardless of what zip code they end up in, to feel held in the way that he did.
Eva, can I, if it's okay, can I start? That is maybe one of the best questions that I've heard, because I don't know, I don't have an answer to give you that straight up, to be honest with you. Something that you might be able to hold on to and take to the kitchen and cook.
Love it.
But I will say this to you, like Kamal just said, there was an era in Greenberg that was fertile soil for all of the things that you hear us talking about, because I grew up in the center under some very radical brothers who got some very important things done at the center in Greenberg. Because see, Greenberg wasn't much different from that zip code right across that you're talking about, but it was innovative brothers who said, you know what, I want certain things for these kids. In other words, the pool is a whole story within itself. The pool that's at the center, because in the middle of a budget year, and also the after school program, in the middle of budget years, Mr. Young and Mr. Lawson, I want to pay homage to them, who are my mentors. They stormed up to town hall and said, listen, we want a pool in our building, because we want our kids to know how to swim and how to navigate the water. And we need an after school program, because the slide, it was first the slide that kids go through the summer months. And that's what, Kamal was a reading teacher at the center for the camp. So these visionaries said, we're not just going to have a camp where kids are throwing balls and running around or whatever. We're going to have an educational component, so that slide doesn't happen during the course of the year. And then when they go back to school, they're on point. And they, the teachers looked like them, they were from the community, it was from family. So I think, to wrap it up, what I'm saying, because I don't want to go on and on, I think what we have to do, and this is part of it, Jamal, you're giving it back. We have to cultivate the soil to where we can plant these seeds, and this stuff grows, because it didn't grow out of whole cloth. We talked about Black Panthers in the last segment. And a lot of these brothers had come out of the 60s, and now we were going into the 70s, and it was a very fertile time in terms of know thyself. And that's why we were able to, people took risks bringing Professor Smalls and Naeem Akbar and them brothers into the community center. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what the community says. We're going to bring these brothers in because we need to make sure that our kids are educated at a certain level. So, I think this is a start. And I think it's important to glean from the knowledge of those who went through that, who traveled that path, and pull us together, hold us accountable, and make us give you what was given to us. And I think that's one of the things. And then we can move that around to these other communities.
Right. Yeah, I think it's. I believe that is happening, man. I really do. These young people, I didn't know how amazing they were. Like, you know what I'm saying? The more I get to interact with them, they are amazing. And I think that they're going to take the work that that you guys did, and we're now doing, and they're going to take it to the next level. And I guess towards sort of the last question, and this is for you, Kamu. Talk about rites of passage, and you know what I'm saying, and the importance of that in terms of creating a village and us creating what the future of education looks like.
Right. So our identity determines our activity, and rites of passage is an indigenous community building technology, really, of being able to intentionally design trials that will prepare young people to take on the privileges and responsibilities of adulthood, right? And so this practice is a formalized practice in its indigenous sense, where young people were taken away from their village context for in a remote place for a sustained period of time, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes up to a year, where they would learn the virtues, the values, the skills that were essential for adulthood within their village context. Rites of passage in a formalized sense or an informal sense would be any trial or challenge that you go through that is teaching you something and it is preparing you to make a drastic change, and it's a shift in terms of your paradigm and allows you to come into a similar level of consciousness. So as your lovely daughter had mentioned, in terms of how to be able to translate that, that's essentially what I've been doing. And having Greenberg as my framework and reference, I've been able to take something that has been a very natural sensibility and align it and marry it into an indigenous practice and understand the sophistication, the art and science of that and then help communities customize a rites of passage that would support the healthy socialization of boys and young men of color, specifically Black and brown boys. And I've been doing this throughout nationally, and working and helping to work with communities. And part of the challenge in terms of doing it in white communities where our students might be a minority is being able to find the stakeholders within that community that would be able to create that experience. So taking adults through their own adulting rite of passage with the intentions of preparing them to serve as rites of passage facilitators is the work that I do.
Beautiful, bro.
Absolutely. I feel like I need to go through another rites of passage, Joe. Like, you know what I'm saying? I want to go through the process. I want to understand how to, implement this stuff because all of these pieces are these are all pieces to the puzzle. Like this is what is going to create, the change. And I just feel like the time has never been more, right. And I just appreciate you guys for, just putting the spirit in me to have this desire. Like I desire so much, to make schools a place that kids actually want to come to. The only reason I wanted to come to school was to hang out and have fun. If y'all don't remember, I was not a very good student at all. But that didn't mean that I didn't want to learn or I couldn't learn or that I wasn't curious.
They're like, we remember. We remember.
Real talk though, but what if you can marry the two, like for the kids today, so that felt the way that I felt, but they actually do want to grab a book too. You know what I mean? They actually do want to learn. Like what we have to offer that to them, and we have to offer it now. And so, Pop, I feel like I left you out for a little while, man. So, what are your thoughts on the last few minutes? We're actually gonna be closing out momentarily. Pop, you there? Can't hear again? Okay. I don't know what happened, Pop. Well, just say peace.
You're on mute. Oh, you can't hear? Okay.
Steve, Kamu, you want to leave, any last, kind of 30-second words, and then, me even gonna close out the night?
I'll use 15, Kamal. One of the things that I think we should, really explore, Jamal, we didn't get a chance to talk about, but that Crossroads situation, and also the Keep It Real situation that was beautiful. We talked about giving kids a voice. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that that we created again at the center. Where we give kids a voice, pick topics. They would come up with the topics. We would hatch it out, talk it out, and then we'd actually videotape it. And that was one of the shows that was going out on public access, and it got a lot of traction. In the families, it got families talk about issues that they may not, normally talk about. So, I think we need to bring those kind of programs back because we're in a visual space now. So,
real 2021. I say we got May. Can we do our first event in May? Let's do it.
Make it happen. Let's do it. Yes.
Thank you so much, brother. Peace.
Absolutely.
Kamu?
Yeah, I would just put a call out for the opportunity to have intergenerational conversations where a young person and their inquiries is guiding the process. There's a worldview, and as young Queen Eva was talking about, centering an experience around a young person's vision for themselves, and then having them at the table to learn the technique of how to navigate. That's essentially what has birthed what you're doing now. So you already have a framework in terms of being able to support the creative energy and the mission of a child, and then backing it every step of the way with the. And this is essentially what all of our children need. And this is what elements of the rites of passage is all about. Giving a voice, charging with a mission, helping people confront their fears, endure, and get a different sensibility around the pain that might be happening. Because those are the two major trials. And then the becoming process takes place. So intergenerational conversations are a must, and I see this as a clear platform as we have multiple generations here today having very critical conversations around some of the most pressing issues in our community. So I salute you, Brother Jamal. I'm very proud of you, brother.
Thank you, man. I'm standing on the shoulder of giants, man. I appreciate you. Peace
Right.
out.
All right, peace, y'all.
Wow. Yeah, I got a little emotional a couple times tonight, man. You know, it's, I love those guys. Truly do. And I'm happy that they were able to engage in the conversation. Eva, you were, in the back a little bit. I know you saw me scrambling and stuff. What'd you think of tonight?
I mean, so much of what we talked about tonight connects so deeply to just everything that I intrinsically believe. And I don't believe it because I read books or because Chris Emdin told me to, or because Rakim talks about this stuff on live, or it's because the first place that I remember feeling held was in a place where I was learning. And I didn't know that until after the fact. I didn't get to reflect on that because we don't teach kids how to do that until after the fact. But we're listening to community members and family members that are saying that this is what we need to grow communities that are different. Like, they're different from what we have seen and what society tells us our communities look like. Mm. The story of Greenberg, the story that was just told in the last 15, 20 minutes, is not one that most people walk around believing about Black communities. And so as someone who, like I said earlier, did not have the experience of feeling held, feeling seen, feeling powerful in my education space, that's just a deeply rooted problem. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of why I started Black on Black education, why I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, why making connections is important. And I've always said it, like Mother's Day every year, my dad gets a card because he's been my mom, he's been my dad. And just for the folks who are still on here, the folks who, as we're culminating and closing out, what society tells us about ourselves matters. And so it is our responsibility, not just like, oh, we should. It's our responsibility. Muhammad Ali said something like, the rent to be on this planet is to be in service of others. We have to live into that, because living in an individualized society was done by design. The United States wanted us to disjoint the community and the powers of our community. That is why they ripped children from their families during slavery. That's why integration happened the way that it did. That's why thousands of teachers were fired in Black communities. That's why we have 5 Black kids in some schools and then schools that are full of them somewhere else. There's a reason. It's systemic. And without spaces like this, without listening to people who just have given their lives to this, where are we going? What are we doing? And so I'm babbling because I'm just like trying to get out all of the feeling that I've had while watching everybody, while we're 4 minutes and 35 seconds over time. I just want to say thank you. And I want to say we are going to be back tomorrow, and that like tomorrow isn't going to end until we fix it. And I said it in our private chat, like I'm going to be a better parent for having listened to the conversation tonight. I'm going to be a better educator for having listened to the conversation tonight, and I'm going to be a better person. And I think that that's like all that we can ask for in spaces like this. So thank you. We will see you tomorrow.
Reach out to our partners and sponsors,
Yes.
the Teens Take Charge, the Black Community Alliance of TFA, Uplift Magazine. Like these people have helped to make this possible. The Center for Black Educator Development.
Yes,
thank you. Listen, man, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, we are going to go together, and that is what we are aiming for right now. And that's what we're looking to make happen. Tomorrow, policy night, policy and equity night. We are going to be talking about the nuts and bolts of how the education system works, as well as what we can do to change it. So it's been a blessing, and thank y'all for tuning in. God bless you. Good night.